أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Elders of the community, sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May I take this opportunity to welcome you all to this presentation of the Life Insurance Project brought to you by the Central Health Board of the Africa Federation. Now, I would require your attention in this because there's a few minute details that will be shown on the slide. I will run through the presentation, and once I'm done with the presentation, we will take questions from both sides, from the sister side and the brother side. They will be answered by the chairman of the Central Health Board of the Africa Federation. And thereafter, once we have completed, there are registration forms available, so you could then take some forms if you are interested in this project. Media room, can I have the slides on, please? Okay, so life insurance. What's a life insurance? As you can read on the screen there, it's an agreement between the policy owner, which in this case is the Africa Federation, and the insurance, who is the Old Mutual Life Assurance, whereby upon consideration by the insurance company agrees to pay sums of money upon an occurrence of the insured individual event such as death, disability, or critical illness. Now, the details of who the insurance company is and where they are from and everything will be given to you by the chairman of the health board. Why do you need life insurance? There are reasons there. The education needs for children, retirement income, funeral expenses. But mostly, I think all of us here are aware that in the current economic situation that we find ourselves in, many a times when the bread earner moves on, the family is usually left in pieces or left in uncertainty, and they don't really have a leg to stand on, and hence why this is important, so you secure the future not only of your family, but for your future generation to come in. So, the most important part, which is the scope of cover. Next slide, please. So, one of the key features of this life insurance policy is that there is a funeral expense cover, which means that an individual who has insured themselves, so for example, in this case is person X, when person X passes on, his dependents are paid. Number one, the first dependent, which is the principal dependent, is usually either your spouse, depending on who you fill into the form, is paid $1,500 as burial expenses. And thereafter, a maximum of 4 dependents. Now, unfortunately here, when we say the dependent is a spouse, that's limited to one spouse. So if someone who is very brave to have 2, 3, 4 wives, that's not covered in this. Only the first wife or the wife mentioned in the form is covered. So that is a maximum of 4 individuals in that dependent, and they are paid $500 each. So that means $1,500 to the principal dependent, so that is, in this case, Mrs. X and the 4 children of Mr. X. Next slide, please. Death benefits, benefit payable on life assured deaths due to illness, accident, and natural causes. The cover provides compensation on death as a result of accident, illness, occupational, and/or natural causes. The geographical coverage is worldwide, which means that if you are insured as a Dar es Salaam Jamaat member, and should you pass on, let's say, in India or in South Africa or in England or in any other part of the world, your life insurance is still valid. It is payable within 5 working days on full claim documentation. Therefore, once you have submitted the required documentation of what is needed for you to prove that person X has moved on, you will then be paid within 5 working days. Now, next slide, please, sorry. We have the permanent and total disability cover. In this case, for example, if an individual during his life, which is Mr. X in this case, does unfortunately go through a permanent disability. Now, permanent disability will be defined on a later stage here in the slides. But if you do suffer from permanent disability, which applies to both limbs, then you are paid your cover during your livelihood. So that means if Mr. X goes through an illness that causes him to have full disability, his cover is paid to him during his livelihood. He is not then going to be entitled to the cover after his passing on. So, which I believe is a fair case in this, given the fact that we do have history of individuals getting full disability and therefore they can't be mobile enough to go to work, and that means then they have to start depending on other sources of income. This, however, gives you a sort of an income that should be steady enough. Now, next slide, please. Now, this is where it gets very tricky, because we have the standalone critical illness benefit, which is a benefit payable only once in the lifetime of a member upon first-time diagnosis of the following conditions. Now, before I go to the conditions, I'll explain you what this exactly is. So, if an individual, Mr. X, suffers from a heart attack, open heart surgery only, no bypass here, stroke, cancer will be defined, what cancers are applicable here, the coronary artery disease, a major organ transplant, a kidney failure, paraplegia, blindness or paralysis, then you are paid 30% of your cover as a benefit. This amount is not deducted from your end cover. So if I have insured myself for $100,000 and I do suffer from any of these 9 diseases mentioned here, the insurance company will pay me $30,000 for me to carry on with my treatment. When I move on, when I pass on, my family will still get the $100,000. So it's not $70,000, it's $100,000. So in reality, you have covered yourself for $130,000 here. However, this is only payable once upon the first-time diagnosis of the 9 diseases that have been mentioned here. The maximum that can be given is 30% of your cover. So if you have insured 25K, you get 30% of that, which is 7,500. If you have 50,000, you get 15,000. If you're 100,000 covered, then you get $30,000. Okay, next slide, please. Critical illnesses defined. So, cancer. The following cancers are not included in this cover, which is all skin cancers, cancer in situ, melanoma in situ, and tumors in the presence of any human immune deficiency virus. Example, HIV is also not covered. A stroke is covered. The exclusion here is infarction of brain tissue as a result of external injury and transient. I don't know why it's so hard, medical terms. I don't even know what half of them mean, but basically anything to do with the brain during this scenario. Paraplegia, a total loss of muscle function or sensation to the whole of both lower limbs and or upper limbs as a result of injury or disease. Not applicable if it's only one part of the limb. So this is where the total disability will also be defined. Here, you will only get this 30% if it is both limbs, so the upper and the lower. Here, if it's only one of the upper or the lower, you will not be covered for the 30% in the critical illnesses. Major organ transplant, it's very straightforward. Human-to-human organ transplant from a donor to the life assured of one or more of the following organs: heart, liver, lung, kidney, pancreas, or bone marrow. Transplant of any other organs is not applicable. Next slide, please. The bypass surgery, open heart surgery to correct the narrowing of a 2 or more coronary arteries by use of whatever. Exclusions excludes all non-surgical procedures such as balloon or angioplasty. Kidney failure, end-stage renal failure. We have the heart attack, death of a portion of the heart muscle resulting from inadequate blood supply. Blindness is also covered, total blindness only, which is both eyes. Okay, next slide, please. Right, COVID-19 coverage. We pray there is no COVID-20 or COVID-21, so this does apply to pandemics. Death claims from COVID-19 are payable provided all other policy terms are met. The claims will be paid on a case-to-case basis. This will be an internal investigation carried out by the life insurance company. COVID-19 is not classified as a critical illness. So that means if Mr. X does contact COVID-19, he is not entitled to the 30% benefit payment. The claims team will assist in any matter needed. Next slide, please. Now, this is where it's very beneficial and exciting for this community and all communities across Africa. Only members who are 65 years and above will be required to do a medical test. Anyone below 65 does not have to carry out a medical test. Non-compliant members have their benefits kept to 30%. Maximum amount of cover which the insurance is willing to give without asking for proof of health status of insured in relation to natural cause of sickness. Medical reports, confidential, valid for 3 years, available to the member via a doctor of their choice. Non-compliance results to capping of benefits of the FCL. Now, over here, ladies and gentlemen, we are the followers of the Ahlul Bayt, so it's about us coming across as honest as we can. So when you do sign up, if you do have any medical conditions beforehand, please do inform the team so that the necessary requirements and the necessary procedures can be carried out. However, on paper, only members above the age of 65 are required to undergo the medical test. Right, who is eligible for this particular life insurance scheme? Number one, you have to be a KSIJ Dar es Salaam member. If you are not a KSIJ Dar es Salaam member, you cannot apply for this scheme. Now, I know the question is also on the ladies' side. However, that will be the eligibility comes from the Jamaat side. So once you fill in your form, you will need to take your form to the Jamaat that you are a member of. And once they do confirm that you are a member, or in the case of the sisters, that they are from a family that is a member of this community, that is when the Africa Federation Central Health Board team will start processing your life insurance. You have to be 18 years, which is again a policy that I believe KSIJ Dar also imposes. So if you're not 18, you are not a member of this community. However, if you are above 75 years, this is not applicable to you. So the maximum cover is the age of 75. If, and I know that we have had these questions in the past, if you do manage to live on to 76, there is no cover that covers you then. So, you know, it's the case of either you pass on before 75, or if you live on after 75, you live on without any cover that comes with it. Critical illness, again, the minimum entry is 18 years. Maximum cover age is 65 years. Children, birth to 21 years, you do not need any identification. Children aged between 22 to 25 years require proof of schooling. For the spouse, your spouse has to be a minimum of 18 years, and the maximum cover is 75 years. Now, we have also received questions. What is the minimum age for the death benefit payable? Any child who has been registered on the form with the proper legal documentation will be entitled to the death, to the burial cover. So, for example, if Mr. X has a son who's 3 years old, he will still get the $500 irrespective of his age. Next slide, please. General exclusions, which is basically anything that happens because of you going on bungee jumping or paragliding or any dangerous sport that is not covered. So if I decide to go bungee jumping and if I manage to pass on over there, my family get nothing. Alcohol, overindulgence in alcohol is also not permissible. Drugs not prescribed by a registered medical practitioner, intentional self-injury or an attempted suicide, active participation in riots, strikes, and civil commotion. However, passive will be covered. Now, the term passive here is very specific in the sense that your active participation in riots will not cover you. But if you do sustain an injury because of not being part of the particular riot or strike, and if, let's say, if it happened when you were sitting at home and then you were attacked and then you're killed, then you are able to claim this. Active participation in terrorism, it's a clear-cut no, but passive is covered. Okay, last slide, please. Right, we have 3 options for this community and all communities in Africa. You have the US $25,000, you have the $50,000 and the $100,000. Permanent total disability, which I did discuss earlier, you still get the same amount during your livelihood. The last expense member, which is the burial benefit, is for your principal dependent, which could be your spouse or could be whoever you have mentioned in your form, will be paid $1,500. The burial benefit or the last expense, each dependent will get $500, maximum number of 4 only. Critical illness, maximum is 30% of the sum that you have assured. However, like I said, the maximum you can get is $30,000. One more slide, sorry. Okay, this is the last slide. This is what is basically the crux of the matter. So if you are 18 to 65, your premium for a $25,000 life insurance cover is $120 per year per person. If you are covering yourself for $50,000, then your premium for the year per person is $243. And if you're covering yourself for the $100,000, your premium per year per person is $403. Now, for the age category of 65 to 75, you will see we have highlighted there. This is your base rate, which is $239, $486, and $805 per person per year. But it says you're required to do a medical screening. So when you do carry out your medical screening, there will be a particular calculation being done depending on what turns out to be your health condition, and then your premium could increase accordingly depending on what you have or what you have been diagnosed of. The pricing, the premium will increase in case of medical condition above the age of 65. Okay, I know that's a lot of information. If you have any questions, please do feel free. I will just note out a few frequently asked questions. Number 1, which is, if I am covering myself for $25,000, if I decide to now upgrade my package to $50,000, is it allowed? Yes, you're allowed. However, there's a pro rata calculation that will be carried out of how much you have paid and what happens next, and thereafter the insurance company will guide you through that process, because there's an exit and an entry strategy into this. Number 2, how long before I qualify? So a minimum period of 3 months, Ali Raza? 3 months. You need to be into the scheme for 3 months, and if anything happens within the first 3 months, you do not qualify for the cover. However, if anything happens after the 3 months of you entering into this, then you are fully covered. Is there an installment scheme? Unfortunately, until now, there isn't an installment scheme. It's a one-off payment, so you'll be required to pay off $120 or $243 or $403 on the date where your cover takes action. So if it's 1st of January, 1st of February, unfortunately, currently, there doesn't seem to be any installment schemes available. I think that's pretty much it. It's the same, the policy is the same for the ladies and for the gents. So, you know, you can insure yourself and you can insure your spouse. It's not that this policy is limited to male only, it's also for females, and it also applies to the spouses and kids accordingly. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. If there are any questions, please do feel free. Okay, we'll start taking, okay, I'll just move the mic in the middle.
Assalamu alaikum. think this was an excellent presentation. Just a small question. Is there any restriction or is there any difference in terms of payments for people that have pre-existing conditions?
Assalamu alaikum. I was wondering if we can get all the questions together so then we can explain together. Yes, Shahid.
Assalamu alaikum. પહેલાં તો હું કોંગ્રેચ્યુલેટ કરીશ CHBની ટીમને આફ્રિકા ફેડરેશન કે આ ચીજ લઈ આવ્યા એ લોકો. લાગે છે આ 7-8 વર્ષથી વાત હાલતી હતી, આજે અલ્હમ્દુલિલ્લાહ આવ્યું છે. મારા 4-5 સવાલ હતા. એ સવાલ ખાલી મારા નથી, મને લાગે છે બીજા માણસોને હેલ્પ કરશે એ ચીજને જાણવા કરે. પહેલું સવાલ છે મારું કે આ જે લાઈફ ઇન્સ્યોરન્સ છે તમે કીધા આપણે જમાત પાસે લઈ જાય એ ફોર્મ, જમાત વેટિંગ કરશે, તો પેમેન્ટ એ જમાતમાં કરવાનું છે? ધેટ ઇઝ નંબર 1. નંબર 2, આપણને ખબર છે, આપણે ઘણા કેસીસ જોયા છે કે આજે જ્યારે હસબન્ડ ઓફ થઈ જાય, વાઈફ એકલી હોય. હવે આ ઇન્સ્યોરન્સના લફડા બહુ મોટા હોય છે, તો આફ્રિકા ફેડરેશન જે આ સ્કીમ લઈ આવી છે એ મેક શ્યોર કરશે કે એ હેલ્પ કરશે આપણી ફેમિલીને, કે જે આપણી સ્પોઝ છે કે જે રેફરીઝ છે એ લોકોને એ ક્લેમ મળવામાં? નંબર 3, મારું ક્વેશ્ચન એ હતું કે આ રેફરીઝ જે છે, મને લાગે છે એમાં 5 કે 6 જગ્યા છે રેફરીઝના, આ રેફરીઝ આપણે ચેન્જ કરી શકે ને શું પ્રોસેસ છે એનું ચેન્જ કરવાનું? નંબર 4, મારું સવાલ હતું કે આ જે સ્કીમ છે તમે કીધા $25,000ની, આપણે $120 પર યર ભરે છે. હવે 10 વર્ષ સુધી હું ભર્યો, $1 ને $20, 11મા વર્ષે મારા પાસે પૈસા ન હોય ભરવાના, તો શું થયું? ઓલું 10 વર્ષના બધાય મારું પ્રીમિયમ હાલી ગયું ને મારી પોલિસી પતી ગઈ? ને છેલ્લું ક્વેશ્ચન એ હતું કે છેલ્લું ક્વેશ્ચન શું હતું જો ભૂલી ગયો. છેલ્લું ક્વેશ્ચન એ હતું કે આ જે $120 રિમાઇન્ડર્સ, કે આજે તમને ખબર છે કે બીજા માણસો તમે એક વર્ષ ભરી લીધા, હવે રિમાઇન્ડર્સની સિસ્ટમ ક્યાંથી આવશે? આફ્રિકા ફેડરેશન રિમાઇન્ડ કરશે મેમ્બર્સને, જમાત રિમાઇન્ડ કરશે મેમ્બર્સને, તો એવું ન થાય કે આવીને એ લોકો લેટ થઈ જાય એ લોકોનું સબસ્ક્રિપ્શન ભરો. તો આ મારા 4-5 ક્વેશ્ચન હતા.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for the excellent presentation. મારા એ 2-3 સવાલ હતા. પહેલું તો તમે જેમ કીધા કે આજે હું $120માં હોઉં અને if I want to go more, then there is an option to do that. What about if I have insured for $1,000? I mean, now I cannot afford paying the premium. Is there a possibility now to drop down to a smaller figure? That is number 1. Number 2, insurance-નું term life શું છે? Does it cover up to 75 years? After 75 years, somebody has to pay the premium, or that is the end? તમે 75 વર્ષ સુધી ભરી લીધા અને એના બાદ પછી પ્રીમિયમ નથી ભરવાનું, or the premium is to death? ત્રીજું સવાલ છે કે આજે at the age of 74 years કોઈ માણસ ઇન્સ્યોરન્સ લીધો અને 75th યરમાં એ ગુજરી ગયો, તો will the insurance pay for that premium? One more question is કે આજે કોઈને પેરાલિસિસ આવ્યો, so automatically he will qualify for that 30%. In the next week or so, the person dies after the paralysis. Due to that paralysis, will he get both the benefits or he will get only single benefit?
Assalamu alaikum. 65 years age no medical test લેવામાં આવે છે. એ છે હવે એક માણસ 63 yearsમાં premium લે, so when he reaches the age of 65, does he have to give a medical test? Okay, because he's entered at the age of 63, he has to continue. That's number 1. Number 2, among the illnesses that been mentioned here, I didn't hear about if there was any mention about neurological or autoimmune, because this is also becoming very common these days. Number 3, is any specific hospital જ્યાં અમને ટ્રીટમેન્ટ મળવી ખપે કે we can go to any hospital? કે local, કે out of this country, for example, એક માણસ અહીંયાથી ટ્રીટમેન્ટ બરાબર ન મળ્યો અને ઇન્ડિયા ગયો અને ઇન્ડિયામાં ટ્રીટમેન્ટ કરાવ્યો તો આ ઇન્સ્યોરન્સ અને ઇન્ડિયન હોસ્પિટલમાં ડાયરેક્ટ ભરશે કે or the patient has to pay first and then it will be reimbursed? Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Muntazir. First of all, MJ, where are you? Beautiful presentation. Thank you very much. I live in London, so I do this. We have got to pay these things anyway. My question here, most of them have been asked. If I take this policy at the age of 24, God forbid, 27, I get one of those illnesses and 30% is paid. Am I still continuing paying the premium until 65, or after that I cannot take the policy anymore? The rest of them, I think the brothers have asked the questions. Thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for the insightful presentation. Couple of questions. What is full claim documentation? So if somebody were to die in South Africa, do they have to get the death certificate from South Africa, or is it RITA over here? And you said standalone benefit does not be deducted from the final. So I feel that's really good thing. Imagine somebody has a benefit of 25,000. 30% is 7,500, and he had an open heart surgery. So at least in his lifetime, we don't have to put a board outside. If he is covered, this will really help towards. So it will help the beneficiary, and I feel it will also help the Jamaat in being able to not have to now look for donations. So I think it's a great thing what you guys have done. Just wanted to know, is stent covered? Stent, putting a stent, is that covered? And then you said medical reports are valid for 3 years. So do you have to then give a medical report after that? Just wanted to reiterate, so 75 is the eligible age. So if I'm after 75, I don't get covered, I don't have to pay a premium. So it's just like a car. If I'm insuring my car and next year I don't insure the car and I get into an accident, I don't get covered. So similar with life insurance, I feel that if you are covered until that time, and then if you don't pay the premium or if you are past 75, then it has covered you until that particular moment. He said there is no installments on premium. I just wanted to clarify that. So you have to pay the full amount, 120. You can't pay $10 a month. If I already have insurance, can I get another cover from this community program? And most importantly, these are group covers. That means there's a number of people. So let's say eligibility, because you got this rate, it wasn't for one person. There must be a minimum of 100, 200, 500 people. So today we get a sign up of 500 people. We meet this minimum numbers of people. Next year only 300 pay. What happens? The year after only 100 people pay. What happens? The year after 10 people pay. What happens? Does this thing in itself fold, or the people that have paid the premiums will continue? Thank you.
Thank you so much for this scheme. I have one question. What if I'm 76? Is there any consideration for that in the scheme? Is there any consideration beyond 75? What is the plan beyond 75? And equivalently, what if I'm 24? What if I'm below 25, as you had explained? What about my children? Can I insure them? Thank you so much.
Assalamu alaikum. बहुत शुक्रगुजार छु and thank you allow me to ask questions. I'm under World Federation membership from New Jersey. So it's a very polite question. Since this is a religious offering, right, under the spirit of Allah and Choda Masumin and under Jamaat, why is it been cut off at 75? People are living 96. My father-in-law is 96. Why 75? It's a very arbitrary figure, and people are working till 90 nowadays, many even in Africa. So that's a very respectful, but I'd like to have an analysis of that also. And so I could become a resident very soon, I don't know. Secondly, since you offer, why are rates double for a person with over 65 when the life activity declines? And in the West, they give special regard to the people who are older. In fact, they get discounts, significant discounts. This is the other way around. It's very unfair, quote unquote, immoral. Okay? Now, I've been asked by a young man here that he got a message from his mom or somebody that ladies need to ask questions and they cannot write. So if that can be considered. Shukra guzar chu. Thank you.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम, મને માફ કરજો જરાક હું લેટ આવ્યો. સો મને જાણવું હતું કે अस्सलाम वालेकुम. Sorry, હું જરાક લેટ આવ્યો તો ખબર I did not see the full coverage. પણ આ જે ઇન્સ્યોરન્સ કંપની છે આપણે ખબર છે કઈ કંપની છે, એ લોકોનું નામ, કે are they a local company, if we can come to know. If not at this stage, then maybe before we start paying the premium, would we know which is the insurance company? ને બીજું કે પહેલાં તો I want to give credit to the team that has come up with this presentation. We have seen many presentations before. આ કામ પહેલાં બી અંજામ લેવામાં આવ્યું હતું, પણ we never reached somewhere where we could proceed. So hopefully this time, inshallah, we will proceed. But looking back at the history, whenever a proposal has been brought, either we did not get enough numbers, or maybe the proposal that was brought was not adequate enough for our members. So in this case, I'm not sure if a minimum number has been set by the provider. If a minimum number has been set, it is very good for us to know. But maru sawal ee chhe, because we don't want to lose on this opportunity. Jamaat, Africa Federation, what is your plan B? Let's say if we do not have enough numbers, are we going to back out, or this is going to go forward? Mari advice chhe, if we don't reach the minimum numbers, is it possible for Jamaat and Africa Federation to sit together and come up with a plan to say, okay, the minimum amount which is about $120, if I'm not mistaken, if that can be covered by Jamaat from our own funding to give a minimum coverage to the members, then those who want to pay extra for a higher tier, they would pay. So at least, we can, Jamaat this time can move forward.
Assalamu alaikum.
Sorry, can we take this last question from the gents side, and then we need to get some question from the ladies as well.
Okay, I want to ask one question. Is that on the illness, which they said they will give 30%. So, for example, the illness which I'm having is maybe it costed me 7,000, and I have 100,000 which I'm paying for. So if you say 30% is 30,000 which they'll give me, but my cost is 7,000. So am I still be able to use that 21,000? Second question is that what happens the first time I'm paying a premium for 25,000. So if 30% is another 7,000. So I've used the 7,000 for, let's say, stain. But then I come to get a bypass. So then I'll have to look for money again because I've already used that 7,000. So I just wanted to know what happens if the illness continues. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for your presentation. It was quite concise. The first question I had was with regards to the excess. What is the excess charged upon the term insurance? When I am paid my benefit, if I happen to die or if anything happens to me, my dependents would get whatever money it is. What is the excess that the insurance company is going to deduct? So I'm asking about the deductible, number one. The second question is, I understand that if this insurance policy tends to expire by the time I am 75, then could there be a possibility for a whole of life policy instead of a term life insurance, which you are offering with this group life? Third question is, suppose I am a member of KSIJ, but my dependent is not a member of KSIJ. Would he still be covered if the dependent is my spouse and he's from abroad and he is not a Khoja? So would he still fall under my dependent and get the benefit if I happen to die? The fourth question is, if I register my child as a dependent and he is, for example, currently 15. 3 years down the line he becomes 18 and my life insurance policy still continues, and if I happen to die, would this dependent of mine who is now 18 still be considered as a dependent and get the benefit? Ideally it should be yes, because even my spouse is above 18, but I'm asking this for the public. The other question is, I would like to know who your reinsurers are, apart from insurers, because that's already been asked. I want to know who your supporters are, who your reinsurers are, and what is your retrocessionaires, and what's the retrocession plan that you have, because we also need to know that if anything happens, there is a guarantee of compensation or benefit, as you put it. The last question I would like to ask is, could you please repeat the clause for alcohol? I think you can hear me, so you can just say it. I would like to hear it because I have a comment on that. What I saw on the screen is overindulgence of alcohol. Is there usage of alcohol only, or is it overindulgence of alcohol? If it is overindulgence of alcohol, being a reinsurer myself, my question would be, who determines the limit of overindulgence? Who defines what is overindulgence, and what level of alcohol drinking would be determined as overindulgence? If I were you, I'm sorry, forgive me, but if I were you, I would say the exclusion should be usage or death due to alcohol consumption, period, and not overindulgence. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Any other ladies, please, for the question? Sorry, one last question. Taking into consideration the recent TIRA, that is Tanzania Insurance Regulatory Authority guidelines for reinsurance, whereby the insurance company protects itself just for the benefit of the people, 30% of the locally placed insurance has to be placed within Tanzania, it has to be ceded to Tanzanian reinsurers. That is deducting the 10% which Tanri has to get. In such a scenario, my question would be, if a Tanzanian is seeking life insurance and is getting a policy, whom are you going to cede to, and how are you going to work out your reinsurance and retrocession plan, especially taking the TIRA guideline into consideration? So would you be insuring this life within Tanzania, or would it be outside? And if it is externalized, then again, who is your reinsurer? And if it is externalized, then is it under the TIRA regulation and guidelines for insuring a Tanzanian with an external life insurance policy? Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I thank Muhammad Jawad for giving us an excellent presentation, and I can actually see the excitement as I speak. 33 questions have been shot, so it will give the clearance. I'll give you the answer. I'm sure by end of this presentation, we'll be able to clear lots of doubts, and lots of questions are coming, but probably we'll like to keep in a sequence way. I'll just give you a gist of those questions, 33, few of them. Like the first question was on the pre-existing condition, Jamaat to be endorsed, the process of paying the beneficiary. Reminders was there to reduce the premium. Probably a person is having the high, he wants to go down. Anything above 75, paralysis and death, medical test, again autoimmune. We also heard about a question coming on hospital, terms and annual based claims, staying, medical cover, 3 years, amounting. All those questions have come, and I would want to start by giving a background. And I believe we are not live. Can we stop that? Media room, can we stop this live coverage?